Morning, Debbie.
Morning, Kirsty.
Thanks for joining me this morning. For those of you watching or listening to this, Debbie Collins started her career in the private sector before working in the public sector. So Debbie was the Finance and Commercial Director for SB Cares, which is a social care services provider owned by Scottish Borders Council. And Debbie is now Director of Finance for a sizable housing association, which doesn't just provide homes, it's also a large provider of care and support. So thank you so much for joining me this morning.
You're welcome.
So tell us, how is this current crisis affecting you?
Well, from our business point of view at Blackwood Homes and Care, everybody's now working remotely, which was reasonably easy to do following a tech refresh that we had done last year. So all of the sort of support services and housing services are now working remotely. But our care services are obviously still out there, still supporting all our vulnerable customers, and sometimes putting themselves a little bit at risk if we have potential COVID-19 customers. So we're sort of balancing between people working remotely and continuing the work that we would normally be doing and making sure that we're supporting all of our care services. So that's probably the main focus for us at the moment, is supporting those care services in the communities.
Mm-hmm. And then what's keeping you awake at the minute?
I'm not sure anything's keeping me awake. Making sure that our vulnerable customers and support workers are safe. Obviously across the news there's been all the stuff about shortages of PPE. I'm pleased to say that we put a response group in place for the coronavirus, which has been meeting 3 times a week. So we have proactively sourced PPE to make sure that our care customers and our support workers are interacting safely. So that's probably the biggest risk that we're concerned about. And obviously guidance changed only again 2 weeks ago, and we had to respond quickly to that. But we're pleased that we've been able to do that through different networks and working with the health and social care partnerships to achieve that.
Mm-hmm. And what's been your biggest learning since this outbreak?
So the learning for me isn't about my personal learning, it's actually about how resilient everybody has been within the organisation, and how impressed, as a part of the executive management team, how much everybody stepped up to the mark, being very resilient, coming up with lots of ideas, solutions that might have done via projects that would have taken 6 to 9 months, we've done in 3 weeks. We are a very digital organisation. We offer our care services through Clevercogs, our sort of digital care offering, and we've just, as an organisation, taken a leap forward again on a digital platform. So it's really exciting that we've been able to achieve that in such a short space of time.
And actually that's really interesting how you've managed to achieve a lot in a short space of time. What's led to that? How have you managed to actually coordinate yourselves and do that?
I think just everybody's so focused on understanding what the key issues are,
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's working remotely and you suddenly can't sign a piece of paper, so you're now digitally doing things, to supporting, our care workers and making sure we've got statements of operating practices and just updating everything. And I think it's just that intense focus. Mm-hmm. We're a very good organisation at focusing on short, sharp pieces of work. Our AGM is a good example of that, where we bring a lot of our tenants and customers in to have a day out, and how quickly we set that up is a good example of what we already do. And it's actually taking that discipline that we do there and applying it to responding to COVID-19.
Mm-hmm. Great. And if I was to ask you to look into your crystal ball, what do you think is going to be different in the world from an organisation or business point of view when we've come through this?
I've been thinking about that quite a lot, and often I speak to my other half about that, and it's interesting because we actually think that, when you talk about the social distancing and things like that, we think eventually that will just get back to normal. I think from a business point of view, I think people, businesses will be much more prepared for something like this. As a housing association, you carry cash reserves anyway. So we always had cash reserves for at least 3 months worth of, payments and, to suppliers and to staff. And I think some businesses have been caught out that way. So I think from a business point of view, I think that maybe mean that people will hold on to cash a lot more. Because one of the key messages that are coming out is cash is king. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's the kind of key area that the businesses will now focus on going forward when they come back out of this.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like what I'm hearing is that Blackwood have done a lot of things right, been really focused, reactive, got cash reserves. Is there anything that you'll take away from this to implement for the future that maybe you weren't doing?
We've very quickly had to revisit all our business continuity plans, and I think that's an area that we probably hadn't focused on as much as we'd liked and kept those up to date as maybe what we should have done. And that's an area that we will probably revisit on a more regular basis. Having worked for Scottish Borders Council for a while and seen, their emergency planning and the focus on the business continuity plans, which you reviewed every 6 months. I suppose it's a bit of that kind of practice, bringing that into our organisation and just making sure that we think about every eventuality, although you wouldn't normally plan for a pandemic. I think it's important that that's obviously now on our radar because we don't know how long this is going to last and the peaks and troughs that are going to happen, or the waves as they call it, whether it's going to happen again.
I think business continuity will be a very interesting topic of discussion, and I'd love anyone listening to this to write any comments on that, because I'm just really keen to hear what other people are thinking about that. Because I've thought before, how you have an annual sort of fire alarm test. Will people want actually more of an annual business continuity test where they just throw a scenario out there and see how they can deal with it for a day?
Yeah, definitely.
We will see. So what piece of wisdom or words of positivity would you like to share with your peers?
I think the one thing I would say for everybody to focus on is there's always opportunities come out of a crisis, and as awful as this crisis is, take a step back after you've had, done the initial reaction on making sure that your employees are safe and well, and whether you've had to furlough them, actually take a step back and say, what are the opportunities? What new work, revenue streams are there? How can you work differently? How can you capitalize on maybe, like I talked earlier about that resilience and seeing all the, the new ideas coming out? How do you capitalize on all that? So there's definitely opportunities out there that come from this, and just go look for them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome, Kirsty. Have a good day.
You too. Speak to you soon. Bye.